He followed the screams and found an alien girl being roasted, alive by tribal aliens **. The air in Repair Bay C of Outpost Nexus 7 was thick with engine oil, ozone, and the faint tang of melted circuit sealant. Jack Harmon wiped a smear of sweat and grease from his brow, squinting at the pulsing glow of a restabilized warp core. The blue-green light bathed the cluttered workspace, casting shadows across alien tools, exposed paneling, and a heap of unused spare parts that only made sense to him. He exhaled slowly and muttered, "That'll hold more to the ship than anyone nearby." The vessel a Taurian merchant rig hummed with new life, finally purring like it was supposed to. Jack had grown used to the background cacophony of Nexus 7, multiple dialects echoing off metal walls, the sharp clank of clawed feet on alloy floors, the occasional smell of food that made his human stomach twist in warning. It had been 6 months since he'd left Mars for this outpost in the middle of nowhere. The pay was good. The solitude was better. And being the only human on a station crawling with 17 different alien species suited him just fine. He didn't do small talk, didn't do politics, just wanted to fix engines and be left alone. That illusion shattered the moment she walked into the hangar. Jack saw her before. He understood why everyone else was subtly stepping out of her path. Towering at nearly 8 feet tall, her figure moved with the lethal grace of a seasoned warrior, every muscle flowing beneath a skin that shimmered like hammered bronze. She wore a form-fitting black suit, practical, yet sculpted to her physique, alien, yet undeniably magnetic. But what caught him off guard wasn't her height, or even the way she radiated an unapproachable authority. It was her hair, silver, not gray, not aged, but alive, like fluid metal catching the light. It shimmered with every step she took, a cascade of starlight that danced over her shoulders. Before his brain could engage the brakes, the words escaped. "Your hair... it's like liquid moonlight." The world paused. Jack felt it. The sudden stillness in the air, the way the ambient conversation just... stopped. Several species in the bay froze, antennae twitching, gills fluttering. Someone in the background dropped a wrench. Jack's eyes widened. He hadn't shouted. He'd just said it like a compliment back home. Casual, polite. But Narvex of House Thallon turned her head slowly toward him. Their eyes met, emerald luminescent, unblinking, ancient. She stared for a moment longer than was comfortable, then turned away and disappeared without a word. Jack stood rooted in place, confused, brows furrowed. By nightfall, he'd forgotten about the moment, chalking it up to another awkward cultural gap. He was halfway through a ration pack and rerouting the diagnostic scanner on an old Freyan cruiser when something shifted behind him. The air felt heavier, human. Came a melodic voice with a strange resonance. He turned. She stood in the alley just outside the bay, bronze skin glowing faintly under the synthetic moonlight, arms crossed over her chest. Her silver hair spilled around her shoulders, refracting the dim light into something almost holy. "You are Jack Harmon, the mechanic." "Yeah?" Jack straightened, his voice cautious. "You have awakened my call," she said, stepping forward with terrifying certainty. "You are now bound to fulfill your marital duty." Jack blinked. "I'm sorry. What now?" "Nar." Vex's eyes glowed softly, her face the picture of solemn declaration. "Your compliment. To speak of a Thallon's essence is to declare one's intent for bonding. You have chosen me. I have accepted. By tradition and law, our fates are now entwined." Jack opened his mouth, then closed it. His heart hammered against his ribs. The silence stretched. All he could think was, "I'm going to die because I liked her hair." And thus began the unraveling of everything Jack Harmon thought he understood about aliens, about duty, and about himself. The silence between them stretched into something dense and electric, like the moment before a plasma surge. Jack took a step back, hands half raised, as if to ward off a misunderstanding big enough to spark an interstellar incident. "Okay," he said slowly, searching for words that wouldn't end with him vaporized or legally married. "I think there's been a little, miscommunication." Narvex tilted her head, silver strands gliding over one bronze shoulder. "You do not deny the compliment." "No, I mean, yes, I did say your hair was beautiful," Jack admitted, trying to keep his voice calm. "But that's just a polite thing humans do. It doesn't mean ... you know. Eternal commitment." Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in confusion. "You compare my essence to celestial phenomena. In Thalan culture, such a statement is only made when the bond has awakened." "Well, where I come from," Jack said, voice edging toward panic, "saying someone has nice hair doesn't mean you want to marry them. It means at most that you notice their shampoo." Narvex studied him in silence. She didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't seem bothered by the absurdity of the moment. Instead, she stepped forward again, closing the distance between them, her presence larger than her frame. "You do not understand what you have done, do you?" she said softly, almost curiously. "Among my people, the call is not voluntary. It is instinct, sacred. It cannot be revoked once it is heard." Jack let out a dry laugh, half incredulous, half terrified. "So, what you're telling me I just accidentally proposed. And now we're, what, engaged?" "Not engaged." Her voice was cool, but not unkind. "Bound. Our fates are joined now. To sever the bond without formal contest would dishonor my house." He rubbed his temples. "Right, of course. Because why wouldn't complimenting someone's hair get me ritualistically married to an 8-foot-tall alien warrior princess?" Her lips curved into what could barely be called a smile, but Jack saw the ghost of amusement in her glowing eyes. "I am not royalty, but my bloodline is significant. Commander Krell has sought alliance with House Thalan for 3 cycles. My acceptance of your bond complicates his ambitions." "Oh, so there's a jealous ex in this story too?" "Fantastic. You mock," she said, tone tightening. "But this is not a light matter." "I'm not mocking," Jack said quickly, palms raised. "I'm just overwhelmed. I fix ships. I talk to engines. I'm not exactly built for this kind of high-stakes courtship." Narvex stepped back, just enough to give him space to breathe. The scent of her ozone and metal, and something warm, like sun on stone, still lingered in his nostrils. "You must understand," she said, voice softening again, the Thalan face extinction. "Our bloodline thins. Fewer births. We have searched for years for compatible physiology across species. When you spoke, I felt it. Something in your voice, your DNA, it resonated. You may be the first viable partner my kind has encountered in decades." Jack's sarcasm died in his throat. He wasn't just some weird, cultural mistake. He was a potential key to her species' survival. That weight hit him like a collapsing bulkhead. His mouth opened, closed, and settled into a line. "And what happens now?" Nar turned toward the corridor, silver hair trailing like a comet. "Now we begin preparation. Commander Krell will challenge your claim in ritual combat, as per Thalan law." Jack stared, dumbfounded. "Combat? As in ... fighting?" "I'm a mechanic." "You have 7 cycles to train," she said without turning. "If you survive, the bond is honored. If you fall, I must accept Krell's claim. That is the way of our people." She paused at the corridor's edge, then glanced back, emerald, eyes searching his. "You awakened the call, Jack Harmon. I do not believe it was by accident." And then she was gone, leaving Jack alone beneath the artificial moonlight, with nothing but the faint hum of the colony around him, and the dawning realization that his life had just taken a very serious, very muscular turn toward something. He neither asked for nor fully understood. Married, combat, alien royalty. All because he liked her damn hair. Asterisk. Jack didn't sleep that night. He tried. He really did. But sleep wouldn't come not with visions of alien duelists spinning spears, 8-foot warriors with glowing eyes, and ceremonial arenas built from obsidian and old bones flashing behind his eyelids every time he closed them. When he finally gave up on rest, he was already halfway into a panic spiral, barefoot on the cold metal floor of his tiny quarters, muttering to himself and holding a cup of instant stim-caf like it might explain the universe. How the hell had a guy like him, a grease-stained, ship-fixing loner, ended up caught in an alien engagement ceremony that involved ritual combat and a genetically endangered warrior bride? He was still turning that question over when the door to his quarters slid open with a soft chime. She entered without ceremony. Nar Vex. Her silhouette filled the frame, silver hair damp from a sonic rinse and pulled into a tight braid. She wore a sleeveless tactical tunic and fingerless gloves, exposing toned arms that looked capable of tearing apart an engine block. Her expression was unreadable, but something in her eyes had softened since last night. "We begin now," she said. Jack blinked. "Begin what?" "Training. You have 6 cycles remaining." He glanced down at his bare chest and boxers. "Can I at least put on pants first?" 10 minutes later, still groggy and adjusting his collar, Jack followed Nar deep into a section of the station he'd never seen before. The corridors here were quieter, walls lined with alien glyphs, the air denser and warmer. They stopped outside a thick pressure door marked only with a single glowing Thalan sigil. The training facility was unlike anything Jack had imagined. A cavernous dome unfolded before him, filled with advanced exercise platforms, kinetic weapon, arrays, balance grids, gravity modifiers, and holographic opponents locked in endless loops of simulated battle. In the center, a towering column of light pulsed gently, monitoring vitals, performance, stress levels. Jack let out a low whistle. "So, this is where you train your warriors." Nar walked to a console and activated a panel. The room shifted instantly, lighting dimmed, gravity adjusted. "Now it becomes where I train you." Jack swallowed hard. "Look, Nar, I'm not a soldier. I'm not even a brawler. I tighten coolant coils for a living. And yet you're still here." She crossed to him and gently took his wrist. Her fingers were warm, firm. "Your pulse rate is elevated but steady, faster than a Thalan's. Your muscle density is compact, efficient. Your species evolved under high gravity, did it not?" Jack nodded slowly. "Yeah, Earth's kind of a brutal place. Then perhaps you are more suited to this than you believe." They began with assessments, agility, reflex response, speed drills under shifting gravity fields. Jack fumbled through the first few tests, cursing and tripping over sensor beams. But as the hours wore on, something shifted. His body began to adjust. The awkwardness faded. His feet learned the rhythm. His lungs adapted to the thinner Thalan air. He was faster than he realized, more reactive. His endurance, shaped by Earth's demanding conditions, allowed him to keep going long after Nar expected him to stop. At one point, panting and soaked with sweat, Jack collapsed on a padded incline and stared up at the domed ceiling. "Tell me the guy I'm fighting is out of shape, allergic to pain, and recently concussed." Nar handed him a glowing blue flask. "Vaughn of House Krell is none of those things. He is Krell's champion and most decorated warrior." Jack groaned. "Of course he is. But he is also predictable," Nar continued. "He values brute strength, dominance. That makes him vulnerable to flexibility, endurance, and misdirection." Jack took a long drink. The liquid was cool, sweet, with a faint citrus bite that sent a tingling warmth through his limbs. What is this? Thal nectar. It enhances neural adaptation and muscular response. Safe for humans, we checked. Jack leaned back and let the strange warmth roll through him. NAR ... happens if I win. She paused, her gaze drifting toward him. Then the bond is sealed by combat. You are recognized as my chosen, my mate. And if I lose, you forfeit the claim, and I am bound by tradition to accept. Krell's alliance. Silence stretched again. Then Jack turned his head, meeting her gaze. And what if I don't want to fight at all? Nar's emerald eyes flickered, her voice low. Then he wins by forfeit, and you walk away. But I do not. He looked away. Jack, she said gently, stepping closer. You did not intend to awaken the call, but that doesn't mean it was wrong. He looked up at her then, not the warrior, not the alien giantess, but the woman. Bronze skin glowing softly, silver braid resting over her shoulder, concern lingering in her eyes. Her voice dropped. I felt something when you spoke. A resonance. It was more than biology. More than accident. Jack felt the words before he spoke them. So did I. Neither of them moved for a long moment. And when she sat beside him, when her fingers brushed his in silence, Jack realized something terrifyingly simple. He wasn't just training to survive. He was training to stay. The arena rose from the rocky edge of Outpost Nexus 7 like a fossilized beast, its walls carved from the planet's native stone long before the colony had arrived. Massive and circular, it had no roof, only a skylight of stars above, visible through the thick atmospheric dome that kept the oxygen regulated and the dust out. At dawn, with the red sun still clawing its way over the horizon, Jack stood at the edge of that arena, staring down into the pit where he would fight for the right to be with someone he hadn't known 2 weeks ago, and yet, somehow, already couldn't imagine walking away from. He adjusted the environmental compensator, strapped to his forearm, feeling its subtle hum as it regulated his body temperature and boosted oxygen intake. It had taken all of Tikra's engineering genius and his own mechanical intuition to get it working in time. And now it was the only thing standing between him and a slow collapse in Thallan atmospheric conditions. Breathe, Narvex said. Quietly beside him, Jack glanced sideways at her, and for a moment the arena faded. Her presence, radiant in ceremonial armor that shimmered like gold dusk, anchored him. She was taller, stronger, 100 times more regal, and yet she looked at him as if he were an equal. You nervous? He asked, trying to inject levity into the weight pressing down on his chest. I and Thallan, she replied. We do not fear battle. He raised an eyebrow. A beat passed. She added softly, but I fear loss. Before he could respond, a horn sounded a deep, vibrating note that echoed through the ground. A gathered crowd, a chaotic mosaic of species, fell silent. Above them, on a raised dais, Council Member Perrin rose. His hair was streaked with silver, his voice amplified by a local field as he addressed the masses. We gather in accordance with Thallan custom to witness the challenge of bond. Jack Harmon of Earth has claimed Narvex of House Thallan. Commander Krell has contested that claim. Let the combat decide truth. On cue, a door on the opposite side of the arena hissed open. Vaughn stepped into the ring. He was a titan of a Thallan. Male taller even than Nar, with muscle layered over muscle, skin dark bronze and glistening with ceremonial oils. His silver hair was braided back, and in his hands he carried a long staff forged from living metal, its surface rippling subtly as if anticipating battle. Jack stepped forward. You sure I can't just offer him a drink and a back massage? He muttered under his breath. Go, Nar said, her voice fierce. Show them what Earth has made of you. Jack entered the arena. The heat hit him instantly, thicker and heavier than even the training dome had simulated. Krell had clearly tampered with the atmospheric controls, again pushing them to the edge of what was survivable, just within council tolerance. His lungs already strained, but the compensator hummed harder, leveling him out. He wouldn't win with brute strength, but endurance? That might just be his game. Vaughn twirled his staff and gave a nod surprisingly respectful. The warrior said, his voice like gravel and thunder, "You're the human who thinks he can claim Naravex." Jack tightened his grip on the weighted baton Nar had provided him. I didn't think I could. But I also didn't think saying someone's hair was nice would get me legally married and nearly killed. A flicker of amusement passed through Vaughn's eyes. Then he lunged. The first clash was thunderous. Vaughn moved with terrifying power, his strikes cleaving through the air like gusts of wind. Jack ducked, rolled, evaded. He didn't try to block. That would be suicide. Instead, he used his speed, letting Vaughn's own momentum work against him. They circled. "Your reflexes are impressive," Vaughn said between attacks. "Your people evolved on a death world, didn't they?" "Yeah," Jack replied, dodging. A wide sweep. You should see the dating scene. The crowd was rapt. Every species present leaned forward, watching as the human danced between the feet of a Phalan giant. Jack didn't try to strike yet. He was buying time, letting Vaughn wear himself out. Callan warriors were devastating in the first few minutes of combat, but they weren't built for long-haul fights. And Vaughn knew it. During a pause, as they circled again, the warrior's voice dropped. "Listen to me. Krell doesn't just want Nar. He wants control of the breeding protocols. If he wins, he monopolizes the future of our species." Jack's breath hitched. "You're telling me this now?" "Because I don't serve Krell anymore," Vaughn said. "I serve the Phalan people, and right now, that means helping you win." Jack's grip tightened. The signal was unspoken, but clear. Vaughn shifted stances. And their dance resumed, this time with purpose. The next minutes were a blur of feints and grapples, of showy strikes that missed by inches and exchanges designed to appear more brutal than they were. The crowd roared at every impact. Perrin leaned forward, scrutinizing every move. Jack's time was running out. The air was thinning. His compensator could only hold peak efficiency for so long. He tapped the emergency override disc on his belt. For 30 seconds, the arena's environment normalized to Earth standards. He felt the rush, instantly cooler air, thicker oxygen, his limbs suddenly lighter. Vaughn lunged at him dramatically. Jack rolled backward, launched himself forward, and let the warrior throw him. He flew. He twisted in the air. And landed beside the arena's environmental control panel. In a single fluid motion, he slapped the secondary device hidden beneath his vest onto the system board. All at once, screens around the arena lit up. And the truth spilled out. Data logs, genetic profiles, suppressed compatibility reports. Every lie Krell had buried to maintain control. The council, the spectators, everyone saw it. Gallan's symbols turned red in warning as the depth of his manipulation became clear. On the dais, Krell lunged forward. "These records are fabricated," Perrin stood. "They bear your signature, Commander, your encryption keys." Nar stepped onto the arena floor, her voice echoing like a war bell. He lied to preserve power. He sabotaged this challenge. He would doom our species to stagnation for his own gain. Krell reached for a weapon, but found Vaughn already standing between them, staff raised. "I stand with the human," Vaughn said, his voice unshakable. "With the future." The crowd erupted. Voices lifted in 100 different languages, but all spoke of change. Jack staggered to his feet as Nar rushed to him. hands catching his face, lips finding his. He barely noticed the cheers dot, because in that moment, with the world watching, and power falling, all he could hear was her breathless whisper, "You did it." He smiled. "Humanity," he murmured. "Hell yeah." The diplomatic chambers of Outpost Nexus 7 recently scrubbed, re-insulated, and hastily polished to a sheen, had never hosted such tension. 3 days after the arena erupted in truth. An upheaval, Jack Harmon now found himself seated across from representatives of half the known galaxy. Alien delegates of all shapes and colors shifted restlessly in their adaptive seating pods. Nar sat to his right, her hand resting over his, not out of ceremony, but grounding. Beneath her cool skin, Jack could still feel the faint tremor of aftermath of what they'd both survived. Council Member Perrin stood at the center dais, voice calm but resonant. The evidence provided by human Jack Harmon has been authenticated. Commander Krell has been stripped of rank and exiled to Fallon outer nullspace. The challenge is closed. The bond between Naravex and Jack Harmon is honored under Fallon and colonial law. The chamber did not cheer, it exhaled as if the whole station the whole colony had been holding its breath. Tikra stood near the back, his gleaming exoskeleton pulsing faint hues of green as he tapped his eye stalks in satisfaction. Vaughn, once Krell's champion, now Nar's silent guard, stood along the wall like a bronze statue. His presence, though quiet, had swayed dozens of traditionalists into accepting the outcome. The formalities passed in a blur. Jack barely registered. The languages, the announcements, the treaties being drawn up. Only when the phrase, ambassadorial delegation to Earth, hit his ears did he straighten in his chair. Wait, I'm what now? Nar leaned in, smiling faintly. Earth's Council has invited us. You are to represent Fallon interests. As my bonded. Jack blinked. You mean, like, officially? Suits and speeches? Tikra chirped from behind him. Don't worry, you'll still be allowed tools. Fantastic, Jack thought. From mechanic to interspecies symbol in under 2 weeks. Beat that, Mars HR. Yet somehow, it didn't feel absurd anymore. 3 days later, he stood aboard the Harmony, a diplomatic vessel retrofitted for dual-species transport, watching Earth bloom in the distant dark blue oceans. White clouds, green landmasses like veins. His home, and now hers. Nar joined him at the viewport, still armored but softened in posture, her hand finding his. Her silver hair fell loose around her shoulders, a style he now knew was reserved for moments of intimacy and vulnerability. It's beautiful, she said. Like your scent, Jack snorted. You really know how to make a guy blush. I speak truth. He turned toward her. You nervous? I am Fallon, she replied with a smirk. We do not feel nervousness. Jack raised an eyebrow. She paused, but I do feel anticipation. When the vessel touched down at New Geneva Spaceport, the reception was beyond anything Jack imagined. Delegates from every Earth nation had gathered. Military, scientists, press corps, all craning to catch their first glimpse of the Fallon ambassador, and her very human mate, Jack, stepped out first. Cameras flashed. Questions fired. Nar followed, regal and radiant, drawing gasps. A senior ambassador stepped forward, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes. She extended a hand to Jack. So this alliance, she said, voice carrying just enough suspicion, was forged. Because you complimented her hair? Jack smiled. Pretty much. Nar stepped beside him, one hand resting just below her abdomen. There is more to it now. The ambassador's eyes widened. Is that? Confirmed, Jack said softly. Hybrid, viable, first of its kind. The murmurs swelled like a wave. That night, Jack watched Nar experience her first rainfall on Earth. She tilted her head back, silver hair clinging to her skin, her laughter echoing through the garden like a melody. He stepped beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist. She leaned into him, all powerful bronze and burning warmth. "I never imagined this," she whispered. He kissed her temple. "Neither did I. I was just trying to be nice." She turned to him. "And kindness has reshaped destiny. Over thee." Next week's The World watched as Thalon technology and Earth's innovation blended, creating medical breakthroughs, atmospheric filters, and, most importantly, new research into cross-species fertility. The implications were staggering, but for Jack, the most staggering moment came 2 months later, when Nar woke him in the middle of the night, eyes wide with wonder. "I felt it," she breathed. "Life." He pressed a hand to her abdomen. "Heart." Thundering, and there it was. A flutter, not myth. Not theory.life, human and Thalon. The bridge between worlds. Jack didn't speak. He simply held her, tears mixing with laughter, as their future took root unexpected, unstoppable, and very, very real. Asterisk Outpost Nexus 7 had changed. What had once been a backwater repair hub on the edge of nowhere, cobbled together sprawl of stone corridors, humming reactors, and species who barely acknowledged each other, was now something else entirely. Harmony Station, that was its new name. Official. Voted unanimously by the Colonial Council. Jack Harmon stood at the viewport of the central tower, cradling a child in his arms, while his other hand held Nar's. The baby shifted against his chest, impossibly small, his skin a delicate bronze, with a soft dusting of fine golden hair. When his eyes fluttered open, they shimmered flickering between human blue and radiant Thalon emerald. Proof. Living proof that two worlds could entwine without war, without fear. Just trust. Just love. Nar stood beside them in a flowing garment that mixed Earth textiles with Thalon ceremonial design. Her silver hair fell loose, a tradition now preserved in this new union. She rested her palm over the baby's back, and her expression so often unshakable now flickered with awe, humility, and something deeper. "I never dreamed," she whispered, her voice quieter than the gentle thrum of the station's pulse. "Not in all my training, not in all my years, that this would be possible." Jack glanced down at their son, then up into her eyes. "And it all started because I said you had nice hair." Nar smiled, soft and slow, like sunrise over sleeping. "See, you saw something beautiful, and you spoke it aloud. Among my people, that is not a small thing. It is intention." "Among mine," Jack replied, kissing her temple, "it's just being decent." The irony still amazed him. He hadn't intended to change anyone's destiny. He just wanted to make someone's day a little better. And now? Now he was holding the most important child in galactic history. As they stepped into the central plaza, the crowd waiting below erupted into cheers, not just from Thalon, but from species across the stars, humans, Taurians, Freyons, even Tikras. Kind, clicking and flashing their light signals in celebration. 100 flags fluttered in the dome-filtered breeze. Tikra himself was already waiting at the bottom of the ramp, all 6 of his eyes bobbing excitedly. "And here he is," he announced in a chittering trill. "The little biological revolution. How is his digestion? Has he developed teeth? Can he levitate yet?" "Let's stick to burping for now," Jack said with a grin, gently bouncing his son. Vaughn approached next, stoic as always. No longer Krell's enforcer, now Nar's sworn honor guard. He bowed low, then looked the child over. "He is strong," he said. "He carries the weight of a future. No pressure, right?" Jack muttered, but he didn't disagree. Asterisk. The colony had evolved. Gone were the rigid sectors, the silent divides. Now, species shared homes, worked together in integrated labs. Children of mixed heritage, some Thallin, some others, played side by side in education domes. The research initiative sparked by Jack's data leak had blossomed into a multi-species coalition studying compatibility, adaptation, and shared evolution. No longer did Thallin speak of extinction. They spoke of hope that evening as they returned to their quarters overlooking the glowing biogardens of Harmony Station. Jack helped Nar ease their son into the floating bassinet beside the window. The baby gave a small yawn, then curled his fingers tightly around one of Nar's. Jack watched them both, the warrior and the child, the beginning of something utterly impossible, and yet completely real. He slid an arm around Nar's waist and whispered, "Did you ever think, when you first grabbed me in that alley and told me I had to fulfill my marital duty, that we'd end up here?" She laughed, a sound that still made him catch his breath. "I thought you would run. Humans are quick-footed." "I almost did," Jack admitted. "But you were faster." Her eyes met his. "I did not catch you, Jack Harmon. I called you, and you chose to stay." Outside the viewport, stars shimmered across the void, distant but present. Lights on alien ships blinked as new arrivals joined the ever-growing station. Earth, Thallin, dozens of flags. Now, Jack's son let out a soft, content sigh. Nar leaned her head on Jack's shoulder. "What shall we name him?" He looked down at the sleeping boy. "Thallin." Nar's breath caught. She looked at him. Jack nodded. "It means bridge between worlds, right?" "Feels ... fitting." She said nothing for a moment. "Then it is perfect." And so, in a quiet room on a once-forgotten station, now reborn in unity, a mechanic from Earth, an alien warrior, and their hybrid child became the symbol of something greater. A bond no law had predicted. A future no science had mapped. All because one human had seen beauty and dared to say so aloud. *The end.